Um, Chief Whip, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The first part of our meeting today before health break, the Honorable Member of Zimba North made very, very serious allegations. Number one, against the council of Mbero District Council. And because they couldn't defend themselves in the House, they have sent me a report, which I've also forwarded to your office, as far as CDF reimbursements were concerned, which were done in 2021. So I thought that...
Raise your voice a bit.
I thought that the Honorable... Sorry?
Said raise your voice a bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I was saying that in the first part of our meeting this morning, the Honorable Member from Zimba North made a very serious allegation against the council, Mbero District Council, by insinuating that Mbero District Council owes him money as far as CDF resources are concerned. Now, Mbero District Council cannot defend itself in the House, but they have sent me a report to confirm that they reimbursed the resources for all the constituencies, which I've forwarded to your office, I've forwarded to the Speaker's office, even to the... And I wanted to request that you circulate that report so that the Honorable Member should be asked to withdraw that insinuation that he made in the House against the council, because those people cannot defend themselves, number one, and that he also was misleading the House by bringing lies into the House. So I beg to move that you request that he withdraws that statement that he made.
Honorable Chief Whip of the House, I've heard you, but since I already made my ruling on that, but still, I'll say I reserve my ruling, and I'll come back later after consultations. Thank you. May you guide us? So Honorable Member for Mwanza Central, I'll give you space after the Chief Whip.
As per our older paper, Madam, we will move straight to government business, and that is our debate on budget. And in this case, I think reports from the clusters, chairpersons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, before we start the debate on the budget motion, may I give the space to Mwanza Central. Mwanza Central, if you are standing on a point of order, I think ask your colleague on how you can ask for space under point of order using the gadget, because when you are asking for a point of order, you always come on top. Next time, please try to do that.
Second Deputy Speaker, whatever you say from that seat, the Member of Parliament must oblige. But just to say that I'm a little bit worried because this is campaign time. And when you say that if you don't understand the gadgets, my constituency will look like I'm ignoramus. And that has a terrible inference in so long as campaign time is concerned. But they know that I'm from the old school. And there was a saying that one day the people will create fantastic mechanical wonders that even ancient people never dreamed could have existed. Maybe in that context, I rest my case. But I want to say this. Thank you so much, Second Deputy Speaker, Madam, for giving a chance to people of Mwanza Central to say, to express a concern regarding my preference to ask a supplementary question to the Honorable Minister for Basic and Basic Education.
Honorable
Would you
Member,
allow me?
are you standing for a supplementary question or point of order?
I'm asking for whatever nomenclature you can call it,
No.
but I'm asking to be heard.
In that case, Honorable, if you have a point of order, go ahead. But if you don't have,
Okay.
if it is something else, then
Okay, then I go for what you have said, because I must be directed by you. I respect you. Thank you. Is it in order, Second Deputy Speaker, Madam, that you cannot recognize the people of Mwanza Central to ask a supplementary question to the Deputy Minister of Education regarding Kanjeza Community Test Secondary School and Bere Community Test Secondary School, who are supposed to be electrified? But why is it in order that you can stifle this kind of concern? Second Deputy Speaker, Madam, I rest my case. Thank you.
I rule you out of order, Honorable.
Government business, budget motion.
Honorable members, can I have chairs? I'm guided that defense will start giving a report from the committee. International relations. Ask for the floor, Honorable. I don't see you here. You have the floor.
Just a point of correction, Madam Deputy Secretary Speaker, that it is not only Defense Committee, but rather Defense Committee and International Relations, Madam.
Very correct, Honorable.
Thank you.
Honorable, your head up, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary Deputy Speaker, for recognizing the Cluster Committee on International Relations, Defense and Security to respond the 2024-25 budget performance and analysis of the 2025-2026 budget estimates. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster on International Relations and the Defense and Security looked at the following votes. Vote 082, Independent Conference Commission, ICC. Madam Second Speaker, on vote 082, Independent Conference Commission, the Cluster Committee ranked that a total of 1.4 billion has been allocated to this vote, up from 1.1 billion, revised estimates as at mid-year 2024-25 financial year. The allocation has been increased by 339.3 million, representing a 30.7% increment in nominal terms. However, despite this increment, the indicative ceilings of 1.4 billion will not be enough to achieve the mandatory and operational obligations in the 2025-2026 financial year, as it leaves many activities and functions paralyzed due to deficit of 783 million. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee recommends that Treasury should allocate an additional of 783 million to the Independent Police Complex Commission for institution to effectively execute its activities such as recruitment and additional staff and investigation. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the cluster also looked into Vote 340, Minister of Homeland Security. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, on Vote 340, Minister of Homeland Security, the Cluster Committee ranked that the 2025-2026 allocation to the Minister of Homeland Security had increased by 3.4 billion, representing 67.7% increment in nominal terms. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the committee noted that despite the increase, the allocation is still not adequate for the ministry, since it is facing various challenges such as inadequate and worn-out office furniture and inadequate and aged fleet of vehicles, affecting mobility in implementing activities and high costs in maintenance. Madam, the Cluster Committee also visited construction of the new premises for C Division of the Malawi Police Service. During the visit, the Cluster Committee learned that the constructions of 160 houses under the PSIP project had stalled. The Cluster Committee learned that the project cost was initially estimated at 11 billion. However, it has been escalated to 30 billion due to devaluation and price changes. This representing 284.6% increase. As at the time of meeting, an estimated 7.8 billion had been spent on the projects, whilst the project was at 40% completion rate. The Cluster Committee noted that delayed payments and insufficient funding had delayed completion of the construction of the houses. It was further noted that 2 certificates held by the Accountant General remains unpaid, and only 2 billion has been allocated to the project in the 2025-2026 budget. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee therefore strongly recommends that the Treasury should allocate additional funds amounting to 15 billion in the 2025-2026 national budget to facilitate the completion of construction of the Malawi police houses under the PSIP. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee also recommends that the Treasury should allocate 4 billion towards the construction of completion of the new Blantyre police station to avoid additional further delays and costs. Vote 091, National Intelligence Service. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, Vote 091, National Intelligence Service, has received an increase of 9.0 billion from the 2024 to 2025 financial year allocation, representing 87.9% increase in nominal terms. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the primary budgetary related challenge for the 2024-2025 financial year was inadequate funding, resulting into failure to pay suppliers and service providers. Inadequate office space and equipment continued mobility challenges. Funds allocated to the NIC in the 2025-2025 financial year budget therefore aims to address the challenges faced in the 2024-2025 financial year and enhance the overall effectiveness of intelligence operations. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee therefore strongly recommends that Treasury should allocate 100% of requested budget by the NIC for the effective operations. Vote 101, Malawi Defense Force. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the allocation to Vote 101 Malawi Defense Force has increased by 35.7 billion, representing a 15.1% increase in nominal terms. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, while some items have received an increase in allocation, other allocations have decreased due to inadequate funds in some items. Some operations might be affected in the Malawi Defense Force. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee therefore recommends that an upward adjustment resources for all the critical areas under this vote should be considered by Treasury to enable the MDF plan its operations smoothly, especially in this national elections year. Vote 342, Malawi Prison Service. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the committee learned that in the 2025-2026 financial year, the prison service has been allocated 51.4 billion, which represents 30.5% increase in nominal terms from the 2024-2025 financial year revised figures. Madam Deputy Speaker, the funds allocated to this vote during the 2025-2026 are not adequate. For example, prisons farms have been allocated 26 million compared to 2 billion in the previous financial year. This represents a 98.7% drastic budget cut. The department has also been allocated 3.0 billion for prison security against a requirement of 5.7 billion, representing a 53% deficit. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the inadequate overallocations in these items would run to various challenges such as ineffective rehabilitations, reformations, and poor health for inmates, and inadequate budgetary resource towards farming activities, leading to increased government expenditure on food and rations. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Cluster Committee noted that the Malawi Prison Service is perpetually underfunded, yet it is an important security agency. To address the funding challenges, the committee recommends that the Treasury should consider allowing the Malawi Prison Service to remit an adequate percentage of funds collected from the mega farms produced instead of the current 20% remittance. The committee also recommends that the Accountant General should honor all the outstanding payments on essential services for the Malawi Prison Service for its effective delivery. Vote 341, Malawi Police Service. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the budgetary allocation to the Malawi Police Service has increased by 42.8 billion, representing 32.0% increase. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the funds allocated to the Malawi Police Service in the 2025-2026 financial year are still not adequate. The Malawi Police Service faces a lot of challenges, which requires additional funding, such as mobility and the inflation, which has caused the Malawi Police Service to fail implementing most of the planned activities in the 2024-2025 financial year. The committee also raised the concern on the continued use of funds at source by the Malawi Police Service. It was noted that almost 8 billion was collected in the 2024-2025 financial year, and only 631 million was deposited into account number 1. The committee therefore strongly recommends that the Malawi Police Service should stop using funds at source without proper authorization. The committee recommends that Treasury should identify proper means of ensuring that the funds are properly disbursed to the Malawi Police Service, increase of any need to prevent abuse of resources. The committee also recommends that the Treasury should prioritize and allocate the following additional funds to the Malawi Police Service for its effective delivery: procurement of advanced drone technology, 3 billion. Procurement of uniforms and protective working equipment, 5.5 billion. And recruitment and training of 1,000 officers. Vote 343, Department of Immigration Citizenships. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the budget allocation to vote 343, Department of Immigration and Citizenship, has been increased by 5.1 billion, representing 38.3% increase. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, in the 2025-2026 financial year, some of the important budget items have not been funded, whilst others have been allocated inadequate resources. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the department requires an additional allocation amounting to 31 billion to address some of the challenges which it is facing. The committee therefore recommends that the Treasury should allocate an additional of 10 billion to the Department of Immigration, whereby the remaining 21 billion should be drawn from the escrow account for use by the department. Vote 100, Minister of Defense. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, in the 2025-2026 financial year, budgetary allocation in the Ministry of Defense has increased by 121% from the previous year's mid-year figures. Whilst the committee recommends government for the increase, it is proper to note that the budget is still not adequate to cater for all the planned activities in the ministry. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the committee therefore recommends that the Treasury should allocate additional funds amounting to 93 million to support Malawi's preparations on its chairmanship of the SADC organ on the political defense security cooperations in August 2025. And the Treasury should revise the budgetary allocation on personal emoluments to ensure that salaries are paid to officers and staff in time. Vote 260, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the budgetary allocation to vote 260, Minister of Foreign Affairs, has increased by 20.4 billion, representing a 23.9% increase from the 2024-2025 financial year figures. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the funds allocated to the ministry are still not adequate to address the challenges that it is facing. The variance of 7.0 billion will affect various activities, including purchase of motor vehicles in foreign missions and the purchase of technical directorate in the ministry. The Cluster Committee therefore recommends that the Treasury should allocate additional resources amounting to 7.0 billion to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for its key activities in the 2025-2026 financial year. Vote 344, National Registration Bureau. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the committee rendered that in the 2025-2026 financial year, the National Registration Bureau has been allocated 29.9 billion, which represents 54.0% decrease from 2024-2025 revised figures. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the decrease will affect various activities at the NRB, such as field mobility, infrastructure, and marriage registration exercise, which requires an additional allocation of about 190 million. The Cluster Committee therefore recommends that additional resources amounting to 21 billion should be allocated to NRB for its effective delivery, especially during this national elections year. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, let me conclude by urging all MDAs to promote budget deficit reduction by prioritizing activities in their respective institutions. I also urge the Treasury to consider revising upwards budget allocation for the critical activities outlined in the report for increase the efficiency of stakeholders under the Cluster Committee on International Relations and Defense and Security. Madam Second Deputy Speaker and all honorable members, with these few remarks, I beg to move that the House consider adopting this cluster report of the International Relations and Defense and Security. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much. Chair of the International Relations and Security and Defense Cluster. Who else is ready? Honorable, what cluster is that? Thank you, Honorable. That's Legal Affairs and Government Assurance. Please proceed.
Honorable Second Deputy Speaker, I am honored to stand before this esteemed House today to present the findings of Cluster number 8 of the Legal Affairs Committee and Government Assurances and Public Sector Reforms. Our report provides a comprehensive review and analysis of the budgetary allocation within the 2025-2026 national budget, specifically focusing on the following votes. Number 1, the Administrator General's Department, vote number 353. Number 2, Registrar General's Department, vote number 352. Number 3, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, vote number 510. Number 4, the Minister of Justice, vote number 350. Number 5, the Legal Aid, vote number 520. Number 6, the Office of the Ombudsman, vote number 550. Number 7, Law Commission, vote number 560. Number 8, Director of Public Prosecutions, vote number 351. And finally, Judiciary, the Office of Justice, vote number 70, the Supreme Court of Appeal, vote number 071, the High Court and Subordinate Court, vote number 072. Allow me to start by commending all institutions within our cluster for their steadfast dedication to executing their mandates, even in the face of considerable financial limitations. With your permission, Madam Second Deputy Speaker, I would like to present the conclusions and suggestions of cluster number 8 as outlined before. Number 1, the Administrator General Department, vote number 353. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, your cluster, having gone through the provision of the Administrator General's Department, noted that the department has been allocated 2.253 billion, up from 756.3 million in the previous financial year, representing an increase of 294%. Madam, this is commendable, and we applaud Treasury for this increase. However, this amount falls short of the ideal requirement of the 3.3 billion, resulting in the omission of key activities, notably the 3 off-road vehicles for tracing deceased estates, implementation of development activities, nationwide sensitization campaign. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, despite the rise in the overall allocation of the cluster further noted that the delays in disbursement of funds have hindered the department's ability to meet its performance targets. The cluster therefore recommends that Treasury should consider increasing the allocated funds to ensure timely disbursement of the same to adequately support operations of the department. Number 2, the Registrar General's Department, vote number 352. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the budgetary allocation for the Registrar General's Department stands at 3.37 billion, reflecting a 4.2 decrease compared to the 3.52 billion in the last financial year. Madam Speaker, it is important to inform this House that government has significantly increased the revenue correction targets for the concerned votes, raising them from 3 billion in the previous financial year to 12 billion in the upcoming financial year. The cluster has full confidence in the department's capacity to meet these enhanced targets. We commend government for heeding the recommendations previously made by this cluster, which urged the reassessment and upward revision of the department's revenue targets, noting the past targets were considerably lower than the department's actual collection performance. Furthermore, Madam Second Deputy Speaker, I wish to emphasize that I stand here today requesting no additional funding for this vote, as the Registrar General assured the committee that the department will efficiently manage its operations within the allocated resources. Number 3, the Anti-Corruption Bureau, vote 510. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, before diverging into the budgetary allocation details of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, let me emphasize to this House that the Bureau serves as a pivotal government institution dedicating to combating corruption through proactive measures, educational initiatives, and law enforcement. In this capacity, it plays a significant role in advancing enabler number 2 of the Malawi 2063, which focuses on establishing robust government systems and institutions. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, our nation is grappling with detrimental effects of corruption, and the well-being of our country is intricately tied to the determination to combat this issue. I must express gratitude to government for increasing budgetary allocation dedicated to essential aspects of the Anti-Corruption Bureau's mandate from 9.56 billion to 10.7 billion, representing 11% upsurge. The increase conveys a strong commitment on our part as a nation to earnestly address the challenge of corruption. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, although the increase is highly appreciated, the Bureau requires an additional funding of 4.5 billion for the office construction and the 2.1 billion for the motor vehicle procurement. The cluster employs upon Treasury to allocate the additional funding which has been mentioned. Number 4 is the Ministry of Justice, vote number 350. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Justice has received an allocation of 5.44 billion, representing a significant increase from the previous allocation of 2.9 billion. As some members may concur, the ministry has often been criticized for slow progress in drafting bills. I request this opportunity, Madam Second Deputy Speaker, to speak on this matter on behalf of the esteemed House, highlighting that the previous delays were largely attributed to insufficient funding and understaffing. Furthermore, the House may wish to note that newly Office of the Registrar of Political Parties is also under the wing of the ministry, therefore requires resources for its operations. For these reasons, the cluster appreciated the gaps and requirements needed by the Ministry of Justice in the budget. However, the committee recommended that out of their requirements list, Treasury should allocate funding on the priority list, which are as follows. Number 1, capacity building for lawyers on the loan and mining contracts, which is pegged at 450 million. And number 2, the purchase of motor vehicles, 3 for the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and 2 for the Ministry of Justice, pegged at 4.5 billion. Number 5 is the Legal Aid Bureau, vote number 350. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, in the 2024-2025 allocation, the Legal Aid Bureau was allocated 3.56 billion, and the proposed estimates allocation for 2025-2026 is pegged at 5.61 billion, representing a 57.4% increase. Despite this increase, severe funding gaps persist. The House may wish to note that the Bureau indicated that out of the most priority areas that were appealed to Treasury for additional funding are the following. Number 1, 2.5 billion for procurement of motor vehicles at the pool in 16 district offices, the 200 million for replenishment of the legal aid fund to assist them to meet the operational needs that could not wait for ORT funds. The cluster recommends that the funds be made available to the Bureau as requested. Number 6 is the Office of the Ombudsman, vote number 550. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, the Office of the Ombudsman will receive a 66% increase in their budgetary allocation from 3.1 billion in the 2024-2025 financial year to 5.2 billion in the proposed budget estimate. Although the institution has registered an increase in the allocation, it is still short of 600 million to procure vehicles, furniture, and office equipment for newly established offices. Additionally, the House may wish to note that the increase is not only in nominal value. Additionally, the House may wish to note that the increase is only in nominal value and not in real terms. Therefore, Treasury should consider allocating additional funding during mid-year review. Vote number 7, Law Commission, vote 560. The Law Commission allocated 2.264 billion, that represents a 39% increase from 2024 to 2025 allocation of 1.12 billion. However, the Law Commission and the law reform activities and the civic education programs remain severely underfunded, receiving only 46% and 47% of the ideal budgets, respectively. The cluster recommends an additional funding of 420 million to Law Commission to enable them to facilitate procurement of motor vehicles and adequate funding for the law reform and civic education activities. Number 8, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, vote number 351. The vote has been allocated 3.86 billion from 2.21 billion in the previous financial year. This represents a 48.57% increase. With this funding shortfall, DPP will not be able to carry out some of its operations. The Directorate requires an additional 1.86 billion, including 300 million for the procurement of motor vehicles to enhance its operation. Number 9, judiciary votes 070, 071, and 072. Madam Second Deputy Speaker, lastly, your cluster considered votes under the judiciary. Total allocation for the vote is projected at 43.46 billion, which is a slight decrease from the allocation of 2024-2025, which was at 44.41 billion. It's concerning to note that the allocation to the judiciary has been reduced despite the widespread public outcry regarding shortcomings within the justice system. Inadequate funding hampers the judiciary's ability to implement mechanisms aimed at improving efficiency. Among other challenges, the judiciary continues to face significant constraints in areas such as procurement of motor vehicles, rehabilitation of court buildings, and continuous professional development. The cluster therefore proposes additional allocations of the following: 776 million votes for vote 070, 882 million for vote 071, and 7.7 billion for vote 072 for motor vehicles and infrastructure. Secondly, 500 million for the training and capacity building. And lastly, 5 billion for judiciary committees and election petitions. In conclusion, Madam Second Deputy Speaker and the honorable members of this august House, although there have been notable increases in the budget allocations in most of the votes, however, the analysis indicates that many votes still continue to be underfunded relative to their optimal financial requirements. This persistent underfunding hampers the effective delivery of justice, governance reforms, and the anti-corruption initiatives. Furthermore, worth noting is that the discrepancies between budgetary allocations submitted to Treasury by stakeholders and those reflected in the official budget documents, which represents serious anomaly that requires urgent attention and correction. The cluster finally recommends the Treasury. The cluster finally recommends that Treasury should ensure full alignment between budget documentation and departmental submission prior to the consideration of proposed budget estimates and cluster meetings. With these few remarks, I hereby beg to move, Madam Second Deputy Speaker, that the report be noted by the whole House. Honorable Second Deputy Speaker, Madam, I beg to move.
Much thanks to the people of Blantyre City South, representing Legal Affairs and Government Assurance Cluster. Who else is ready? Which cluster is that? Public accounts and budgets, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing Cluster 7 to present its report. Madam Speaker, I stand before this august House with great honor and privilege to present the report of Cluster 7 of Public Accounts and Budget, following our extensive scrutiny of the 2025-2026 budget allocations. As esteemed members of this House are aware, the budget is a crucial tool for ensuring transparency, accountability, and effective delivery of public services. Our analysis has focused on ensuring that government expenditures align with national priorities while addressing key operational challenges. The cluster, Madam Speaker, reviewed budget allocation for the following votes. Vote 020, miscellaneous and other statutory payments. Vote 030, pensions and gratuities. Vote 090, National Audit Office. Vote 271, Accountant General's Department. Vote 273, Malawi Revenue Authority. Vote 279, Financial Intelligence Authority. Following detailed engagements with controlling officers, the cluster has made key observations and recommendations, which I now present. Vote 279, Financial Intelligence Authority. Madam Speaker, the Financial Intelligence Authority, FIA, plays a crucial role in combating financial crimes, yet it continues to operate under severe budgetary constraints. The total allocation for FIA in the year 2025-2026 fiscal year stands at 2.26 billion, a 13.6% increase from the previous years. However, despite this increase, the authority still faces significant operational challenges. The committee noted that while FIA has recorded key achievements, such as investigating 66 money laundering cases and freezing over 1.3 billion in fraudulent transactions, its capacity remains overstretched. The backlog of financial crimes cases remains unresolved due to delays at the Financial Crimes Court, which currently operates with only 3 judges. The committee strongly recommends increasing judicial capacity to expedite the case resolutions. Additionally, FIA has been unable to procure essential operations assets due to budgetary constraints. The committee is particularly concerned that the Deputy Director General has been without a suitable vehicle for over 3 years. A request for 220 million for vehicle procurement has been submitted, and we urge Treasury to prioritize this allocation to improve FIA's mobility and effectiveness. Vote 271, Accountant General's Department. The Accountant General's Department, Madam Speaker, is at the core of financial management and accountability in government operations. The budget allocation for the department has increased significantly to 33.5 billion, representing a 57% rise from the previous fiscal year. This increase is attributed to the expanded financial management reforms that upgrades the Integrated Financial Management Systems, IFMIS. Madam Speaker, despite this increase, the department continues to struggle with pension arrears, which have now accumulated to 172 billion. The committee expresses deep concern over prolonged waiting periods for pensioners, some of whom have been waiting for years to receive their dues. An additional 9 billion is required to clear the backlog of pension obligations. And we call upon the Treasury to allocate these resources urgently to ensure retired civil servants receive their rightful entitlements in a timely manner. Vote 090, National Audit Office. Madam Speaker, the National Audit Office serves as the primary institution ensuring transparency, accountability in the use of public funds. At the beginning of the year of 2024-2025 financial year, National Audit Office was allocated 3.98 billion, which was revised upwards by 102.29% of the 8.027 billion at the mid-year. In the 2025-2026 proposed budget, National Audit Office has been allocated 7.5 5.58 billion, which is a 5.58% decrease from the mid-year revised estimates. Madam Speaker, come to this, the whole budget has increased with over 2 trillion, and we have the audacity to decrease the budget of the institution that is mandated by law to oversee how these resources would be utilized. Are we serious as a country? How do we guarantee that the resources we are about to approve for expenditure will indeed be used for the intended purposes as allocated if we do not capacitate the Auditor General's office to conduct the much needed audits over the usage of these resources? Your committee, Madam Speaker, is particularly concerned about the impact of the financial constraints of NAO's operations, which will result in the suspension of key audits, including forensic investigations, embassy audits, local authority financial reviews. Without additional funding, National Audit Office will be unable to meet its mandate effectively. This should be a concern for all of us, but in particular the Minister of Finance himself, unless, of course, if he would be okay that the resources be mismanaged. Additionally, the current National Audit Offices have been condemned for use, posing a significant operational challenge. The committee strongly urges the government to fast-track the construction of the purpose-built NAO complex to ensure a conducive working environment for auditors. Vote 273, Malawi Revenue Authority. Madam Speaker, the Malawi Revenue Authority, MRA, remains a key institution in revenue collection and financial sustainability. The budget allocation for MRA stands at 24 billion, which, with a revenue collection target of 3.2 trillion, representing a 15% increase from the previous financial year. The committee, however, notes persistent tax compliance gaps, smuggling activities, and inefficiencies in tax administration. Outdated ICT systems continue to hinder the revenue collection efficiency, and the committee strongly recommends an additional 7 billion to be allocated for ICT modernization. Furthermore, 3 billion should be allocated for enhanced border surveillance and custom operations to curb revenue leakages from smuggling. The cluster committee noted security concerns where MRA officers at the borders were living in rented houses, which posed a danger to their integrity since some landlords were also doing cross-border trading. This is making their work difficult since they are policing their own landlords. The cluster recommends for the construction of MRA houses in all border posts in the country. Vote 20, miscellaneous and other statutory payments. Madam Speaker, the budget allocation for this vote has more than doubled, increasing from 57.5 billion in the previous fiscal year to 120.36 billion. To 120.36 billion. This rise primarily reflects increased allocation for student loan and recapitalization of the National Economic Empowerment Fund, NEF. The cluster committee recognized the importance of NEF in promoting economic empowerment and job creation. However, the committee was concerned about disbursement and recoveries. Therefore, the committee urges the Ministry of Finance and the managers of NEF to provide a comprehensive report outlining funds' operational performance, loan recovery rates, and impact on the targeted beneficiaries. Vote 030, pensions and gratuities. Madam Speaker, the challenge of pension arrears remains critical, with outstanding obligations now at 172 billion. Pensioners continue to face long delays in accessing their benefits. creating undue financial hardships. Madam Speaker, we are all witnesses to the hardships that the retirees and pensioners are facing in this country. These people have been asking us for help. We should be serious about helping these people. The committee emphasizes the urgent need for an additional 9 billion to clear the existing backlog. The automation of pension fund operations is also necessary to enhance efficiency and transparency. The committee recommends the immediate implementation of a digital pension system to streamline processes and minimize administrative efficiencies. In concluding, Madam Speaker, the observations and recommendations I have highlighted reflect the critical financial and operational challenges facing key institutions under the Cluster 7. While government funding remains constrained, the strategic resource allocation is necessary to address inefficiencies and ensure that smooth delivery of essential public services. I therefore urge this August House to consider this report and support the recommendations therein to improve financial accountability and service delivery. With these remarks, I hereby beg to move, Madam Speaker, that the report be noted by the House. Madam Speaker and honorable members, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The people of Zomba and Tonya, representing Cluster 7, Public Accounts and Budgets. We are remaining with 3 clusters, and because of time, I suspend the House for lunch break. We'll be back at 5 minutes before 2. House suspended. Five minutes before 2. Thank you.
While the second Deputy Speaker, Honorable Aisha Adams MP, has now suspended the House for lunch break. A recap of business on the floor so far. Under general business, 4 ministries took questions on the floor. These are Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Lands, and Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education. Some of the members that asked questions are those representing Mangochi Central, Zombali Kangala, Nsanje North, Lilongwe Mpenu Nkhoma, and Nkhotakota Central, among others. The House then moved to government business, and under this, 3 cluster committees have since presented their responses on the budget statement, and these cluster committees are International Relations, Defense and Security, Legal Affairs and Government Assurances, and Public Accounts and Budget Cluster Committee. Sitting will resume at 5 minutes to 2. Mmenemu ndi momwe zayendera zokambirana za phungu lero chigawo cha kum'mawako. Maunduna anayi ndiwo ayankha mafunso kuchokera kwa aphungu mnyumbayi, ndipo maundunawa ndi unduna wa zaulimi, unduna wa zaumoyo, unduna woona za malo ndi unduna woona za maphunziro a primary ndi secondary. Ena mwa aphungu omwe anafunsa mafunsowa ndi oyimirira Mangochi Central, Zombali Kangala, Nsanje North, Lilongwe Mpenu Nkhoma ndi Nkhotakota Central. Kumbali ya boma apa mpando amagulu amakomiti a nyumba ya malamulo okwana atatu ndiwo apereka malipoti a makomiti awo pakadali pano, ndipo makomitiwa ndi komiti yoona za maubale a dziko lino ndi maiko ena ndi chitetezo cha dziko, komanso komiti yoona za malamulo ndi kuonetsetsa kuti boma likukwaniritsa ntchito zake, komanso komiti yachitatu makamaka ndi icha yoona za malamulo ndi kuonetsetsa kuti boma likukwaniritsa ntchito zake. Pakadali pano achiwiri a Speaker nyumba ya malamulo olemekezeka Mayi Aisha Adams MP ayimitsa kayi zokambirana kuti aphungu apite ku nkhomaliro. Zokambirana zipitirira masana ano nthawi ya 5 minutes to 2. Ndine Rachel Gonani.